This is our 100th episode.
This is our 100th episode.
Not necessarily the 100th we have recorded.
No.
But 100, the number, in numbers, is number 100.
Yes. Numerically in terms of release.
Yes, right.
It is 100, if you discount the previous incarnation of the show.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes. Yes, episode 100. Can you believe we will have released 100 of these?
Yes.
Yeah, well, when you average it out, we've been doing this since...
Well, we've been doing it for 4 years now?
Yeah.
So 100 is, frankly not that great.
Yeah.
For sure that was ostensibly supposed to be weekly.
Yeah, right. We should have reached this 2 years ago.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is the Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
Did you listen?
I listened all right.
Did you watched Listen?
I did watch Listen.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
What do you think of Listen?
I loved it.
I loved it too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Glad we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good.
Yeah, it was I thought it was definitely my favorite of the season so far.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, and it's pretty high up there. I haven't stopped to think where it falls in my all-time favorites, but yeah, it has the potential. Yeah,
I haven't put that much thought into ranking it in quite that way, but it definitely it's a contender in it's I would call it it's a top tier Doctor Who story. It's a story that if you said it was the best story in years or one of your top 10 favorites, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I'd be like, okay, that's plausible.
I believe that is an opinion that could happen. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Whereas if someone said that, I don't know that Deep Breath was the greatest Moffat script or anything like that, then I like Deep Breath well enough, but really, so.
Yeah.
This I have heard this called, Stephen Moffat's best script or his best script in the Moffat era. I don't know if I agree with any of those, but it is quite a good one.
It is definitely a good one. Yeah, I would say it is probably. I would say it's not that this is necessarily saying all that much, but I would say that it's definitely the best Moffat script, in my opinion, in a while. But then again, he has so many of them every season, It's not hard for it to beat. Well, I don't know. Obviously, it's not hard to beat Time of the Doctor, but I didn't like Time of the Doctor much at all. But
yeah, well, for me, I would say it's his best script since Day of the Doctor, which isn't saying much.
Right. That's not too long ago, but yeah, I would say that's probably true.
Yeah, because I probably would. Have Day of the Doctor beat it, but not by all that much.
Yeah.
It is, interestingly enough. I think it's his only script that is a regular season episode, which is to say, not a premiere, not a finale, not a special, since Series 5.
Oh wow! Right, because he did things like A Good Man Goes to War and Let's Kill Hitler, but those were sort of mini halfway finales.
Right, exactly. Which I think was one of the reasons behind splitting the season anyway, to do more premieres and finales.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, and yeah, so it's kind of nice to see that he still got it, I guess, because I feel like, and I have lamented, I have lamented in the past that he he has been focusing on bigger arcs, and he does do these things. He does do the premieres and the finales and stuff. And as a result, he's looking at the bigger picture, and he doesn't, or he hasn't been doing things like this. But here he's done it, and he's done it very well. And so I appreciate that, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
It solidifies my opinion that he should go back to that after he stops being showrunner. He should continue to write one episode a season.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I don't know how likely that is to happen.
Probably not very.
But yeah, this even though it wasn't like a premiere or finale, it still had a very like a big story feeling to it.
True.
Or actually, it does at the end, but through most of it, it kind of doesn't. But then it sort of takes a turn.
Yeah, it's true because it does. It's mostly a standalone episode until you get to that part where it's this is tying into stuff in Day of the Doctor.
Right.
And so, that's a surprising sort of step back, I guess. Like, not step, like sort of a step back to like view the bigger scope of things, as opposed to just being like a standalone little episode where, nothing else happens. Like nothing happens outside of the stuff in the story.
Yeah.
Which interestingly, there were no connections to any of the stuff that was going on this season, or the stuff that like has been sort of pervading through everything with the Promised Land and Missy and stuff.
Yeah, there was no Missy, no Promised Land. There were no maths.
That's right. Yeah, he used his chalkboard, but it was not to do maths.
Yeah.
So this time it had words.
They could have been variables.
They could have been. This could have just been a very. He's sort of transcending just ordinary math, and now he's gone onto this like artful math where it's actually, these are all variables, and if you really break it down, it's really complicated math, but it looks like it's a paragraph to you or something.
Yeah, could have something to do with like block transfer computation.
Oh yeah, there you go.
This is the first episode for me where I've really, really, really liked Capaldi.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I've been kind of gradually warming up to him, and for the most part, I'd say this is the episode where he just kind of like owns this whole episode.
Yeah.
Not that Jenna Coleman doesn't also, but
Yeah.
they both do pretty great. But this episode gives both of them a lot to do, and it's all pretty awesome.
Yeah, they co-own the episode.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I really like. I love everything that Capaldi does with this, and he's I like towards the end where he's like angry at Clara that she won't get in the TARDIS, and he's got that whole thing like where he just has to know, and that's like this. There's like this. You just see this like, I don't know, this intensity in just like he's got to find out, and he's taking this sort of curiosity thing to like a whole pretty unhealthy level. But he's just great, doing that, and that was, that was, I don't know, that was just something else. And I feel like I feel like I'm starting to sort of get a good sense of like who Capaldi's Doctor is, because that was something that I wasn't sure about. But when I was watching Deep Breath, I wasn't sure what he was trying to do, and now I feel like we're sort of really seeing, this is what Capaldi's like, and this is what the 12th Doctor is like. This is what the 12th Doctor is going to be like, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. Is the important thing. As I like where this is going, basically. And I'm excited to see where it's going.
I worry that this might be like the high point of the series.
Oh, that's true. Because where can you go from here?
I don't see. That's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's only a third of the way through the series. But
oh yeah, wow. That's so exciting just to think about. We're still only a third of the way through. And I mean, eventually, as the weeks go by, this is going to stop being as exciting to talk about how much there is left. But right now, yeah, we're not even halfway. That's so great. It
is. And there's some episodes from new writers coming up later in the season. There's all kinds of exciting stuff that's sure to go down. So
yeah.
I think so far, I think this is my favorite season since Series 5.
I think you're right. Or not that I think you're. Well, I'm sure that is what you actually think. I don't think you're lying, but I agree with you. I think that this is the best. I think this is the best Doctor Who has been consistently from week to week since Series 5.
Mm.
But yeah. No, and it is. It's yeah. This is, and I mean, I wonder how much in part this is due to the fact that there was a cast change and now we're dealing with a new Doctor. You know, I wonder if these ideas would have worked as well had Matt Smith stayed on, and you know what would Robot of Sherwood been like had 11 gone to Sherwood Forest and tried to disprove the existence of Robin Hood. You know, and I wonder how this season would have been written differently, you know, with Matt Smith. But I mean, like, I don't know. I just we're discovering, like, it's all this stuff kind of wrapped up together. Like, we've got this new Doctor we're discovering, and we've got this arc with Clara where she's discovering this new Doctor, and she's trying to live her life. And that is another thing, is I actually really like seeing Clara do stuff like outside of the TARDIS.
Yeah, like the school stuff is interesting. Danny Pink, I really like him.
Yeah, he's a neat character.
Mm-hmm. The scenes with them together on the date having dinner, and like those were, I just thought they were all really funny.
Yeah,
and well written, well acted. One of the weird things is there's a scene where they start talking about one of their students. Courtney, who I guess is the character we saw in Deep Breath and Into the Dalek. Because there's a student who's sort of talking back to Clara in a flashback in Deep Breath.
Oh, yeah.
And then that same student kind of makes a snide remark in Into the Dalek.
Oh, okay.
So I assume it's that student.
Yeah.
And that we're probably going to see her again. But what it really, really reminded me of is An Unearthly Child.
Ooh.
Which starts off with Ian and Barbara kind of meeting in a classroom after school, and they just kind of start talking about how weird Susan is.
That's right. Huh. That's really fascinating. I wonder if that was like a conscious decision. Like I wonder if Stephen Moffat was trying to reference that episode, trying to do stuff. And I mean, obviously, like, the parallels are already kind of baked in because they're already at the same, they are at the same school, right? Like that was established. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like, it's weird how nostalgic it seems right now. Like how many things it seems are, direct references to, the first Doctor era and stuff like that. And it's kind of weird. I mean, I'm sure obviously some of it is conscious, but I wonder how much is conscious, and I don't know. It's fascinating though.
Well, we see the first Doctor in this story.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, we do. Or do we? Because we don't know anything about. Well, because was this how much had been established in terms of like Gallifreyans versus Time Lords? Like what in the continuity of the show? Like what? Can Gallifreyans regenerate? Like, is that?
Well, pretty much nothing is established in the TV series. I don't think.
Okay, I couldn't.
I mean, there are what appear to be guards. In Gallifrey, and it's not clear whether they're Time Lords or quote unquote just Gallifreyans. It's pretty much nothing is stated, and in fact, in this episode, the scene in the barn. Mm-hmm. It's still ambiguous. It was in Day of the Doctor, and it still is, I think, ambiguous as to whether that barn is on Gallifrey.
Oh, yeah.
We only know that, we presume that that's a young Doctor there. Mm-hmm. Clara seems to presume it, and it makes sense given the whole, TARDIS telepathic thing.
Yeah.
So it does seem to be, a young Doctor, but whether he is on Gallifrey at that moment, or whether he's even from Gallifrey originally, considering he's supposedly half human. But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the thing is because and so this kind of more or less establishes that you're not born a Time Lord. You sort of graduate to one, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that is an implication that I think a lot of the expanding universe has kind of taken that implication, mm-hmm. like the Gallifreyan Academy and the notion of non-Time Lord Gallifreyans. One thing being in in the Big Finish audios, Ace, the Seventh Doctor's companion, ends up going to attend the Academy in training to become a Time Lord. Which was actually an idea that was originally going to be implemented in the Seventh Doctor era had the show continued.
Oh, really?
Or at least it was proposed. I don't know if they would have gone through with it, but it was proposed.
Huh.
So it's not a brand new idea, but it's definitely the first time that's ever been suggested on the show, I think.
Interesting. Well, that's neat.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of strange, though, because, I don't know, it seems to me like the Doctor came from, like, wealth and privilege.
Right.
Which was kind of referenced in last week's episode.
Right, it was, yeah.
So I wonder, I mean, not that, wealthy people don't have barns, because I'm sure a lot of wealthy people do have barns.
Right.
So maybe it's, but it seemed to me like he was in a children's home, much like Danny Pink was, or Rupert Pink rather.
Right.
Because whoever comes out to see him, we don't really know who they are, but they say, "Oh, why don't you come in with the other boys?"
Right.
Which seems to suggest that he's being raised in like a dormitory, or he's not with his parents, presumably.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that was like. No, I don't know. But yeah, that is weird. I mean, like, I guess you could still fit that in. Maybe. I mean, you could say that, like, oh, he was adopted by rich people or something. But like later on, after like this was before that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing is the I love how Moffat does this, because he always, whenever he kind of explores the Doctor's background, he doesn't demystify it. He also adds other mysteries in.
Right.
Like in this episode, for instance, I think the woman says, "Well, why is he crying?" And then the man says, or maybe it's the other way around. The man says, "Why is he crying?" And the woman says, "Oh, you know why he's crying."
Right.
And we don't know why he's crying.
Right.
It could be that he was like he had a family tragedy, or he became like a political outcast at a young age or something. All kinds of things could have gone down to have him like show up in these circumstances. So
yeah, and that is nice. Like, like, because I never want to know the Doctor's whole story. Like, that would completely ruin it. And so I like that we get more, but at the same time, it's kind of like the collective things we know increases, but then so does the number of things we don't know, and so it's like the percentage stays the same, or like the ratio stays the same or something, or possibly becomes smaller, favoring more of the things we don't know, and so I like that, and that sort of keeps the character mysterious while at the same time sort of helping us feel like we know him better. And yeah.
Now, did you know that one of the things that Clara says to the young Doctor is a First Doctor quote?
I didn't know that when I was watching it, but I read that after the fact. Yeah,
I was kind of like, because she was like talking about fear, I was kind of waiting for her to say it. And I was so glad when she said it. Fear makes companions of us all, which is from the third episode of An Unearthly Child. So.
Yeah, so that's neat. So, and it's funny that so obviously the Doctor getting, he remembered that from this, or at least that's sort of retconned into being the case. But and then also like the never cruel or cowardly thing, that was something that it seems like Clara introduced, and yeah, so that's kind of neat how it's all kind of come back.
But she heard it from
that's right.
Them.
That's right. So it's one of them fancy bootstrap paradoxes that Moffat loves so much. But yeah. So that's really cool though. Like, and like that was kind of like when I feel like that whole premise that the TARDIS could wind up going to like the Doctor's past. I don't know if it was like foreshadowed, but I kind of got like when they landed in that barn. I don't know. I kind of like I was like, could this be the Doctor? And then and it was so ambiguous, and it sounded when they were talking about the kid going into the army, I was like, oh well, maybe it is Rupert Pink, and I'm overthinking this. And then they were like Gallifrey, and I was like, oh my god. And it was just I love that, and obviously that whole dialogue was designed to draw that out and make you question, and I don't know, it it had me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love that though. That was awesome. But yeah.
Yeah, I think there are probably some people who won't like that.
Yeah.
But oh well.
Oh,
I mean,
well, indeed.
you can't please everybody.
No, you can't. Well, and it's funny because, all these things happen in this episode, but they weren't like the plot of the episode. Like, actually, I guess it kind of depends on what you think the plot of this episode was.
Or whether there even really was one.
Right, which is kind of cool. Like, I like that we never actually see this monster, if there is a monster. And basically they spend the whole episode sort of like, I don't know, chasing a thought experiment. Like,
yeah. I come down on the side that there is definitely no monster.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's better that way.
Yeah, I think because pretty much everything that happens, there's always like an alternative proposed.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, with the thing under the bed, they say either it's one of your little friends playing a trick or it's not.
Right.
And then in the end, it turns out, it presumably was. And I would assume that that kid was probably scared out of his wits.
Right.
I'd be interested to see what happened from that kid's perspective.
Yeah, But yeah, and I like that. I like that it's never explicitly, because I mean they could have easily filmed that scene where like the blanket comes off and it's just a kid and ha you scared us or whatever. But they don't do that, and so you're sort of left to wonder like was it or was it not, and that's just I like that ambiguity, and I think that's really neat. I feel like Stephen Moffat had said, maybe it wasn't about his episode, but I thought like in one of the things in some of the interviews and stuff leading up to the premiere of Series 8, I feel like Stephen Moffat said something like, oh, this is this series you're gonna see what the Doctor's like when he gets bored or something.
I think that was in relation to this one.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. I wasn't sure. But yeah, so I guess this is what happens.
He just kind of gets all worked up over nothing.
Right. He invents monsters to fight. Yeah. Which I can totally see.
I really did like the scene with him talking to himself, though.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning of the episode with his monologue and, seeing him on the top of the TARDIS, underwater, like all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, and and it just, I don't know. I loved it.
Have you ever had a dream like that?
I'm not so sure I have. I feel like I've had dreams like are we talking like down to the hand grabbing you from underneath the bed? Because I don't think I've ever dreamt of anything being under my bed, but I have definitely dreamt of of thinking I've woken up and like being in the dark and then thinking there's something there. But I don't think I've ever gotten so far as to like having something come out from under the bed and grab my foot or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a dream even vaguely like that.
It's all like you're in a car and you're driving the car, but you're in the back seat, and then
yeah, stuff like that. Like nothing as exciting as that ever happens in my dreams. It's all just the most mundane stuff, but with like an added layer of abstraction and nonsense.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think I've ever had that dream. I don't even. So I assume that like the general idea is that the doctor's wrong, right?
So because it doesn't happen to everyone.
Well, I mean, maybe it could, because maybe it'll happen when I'm really old, like it does to
right.
that old lady we see here or whatever. But I get the doctor's kind of premise here is like that everyone has this dream,
right?
And Clara, I guess Clara's had it, but she seemed kind of like unsure of herself.
Yeah,
like it was the power of suggestion that the doctor managed to convince her. Yeah, sure, I probably had a dream kind of like that.
Right.
Where the doctor just asserts that everyone has dreams like that, and she just kind of goes with it.
Well, maybe that's part of the reason why the TARDIS latched on to Rupert Pink, is because it was the closest approximation. It was like 1 degree of separation. Like, all right, well, Clara hasn't had this dream, but Rupert Pink has, so let's just go there. And then that's what happened. I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, you'd think if the Doctor were being a good scientist, he would look at his original premise and then maybe have to take a step back and do some do some work over again to see if his conjecture that there's something, like everyone has a silent companion or whatever. Maybe he has to reevaluate that. And he should stop his experiment and start over. But he doesn't. So we're left with that.
And I guess we're supposed to presume that he wrote "listen" on the chalkboard.
I guess we'd have to.
Because he says, you don't think I just read it there and then forgot I did that,
right.
Would you? And then Clara says, "Have you met you?" or something
right,
along
right.
those lines.
Yeah, and I would say that, and I think it's certainly a possibility that maybe he even wrote that, a long time ago and just forgot he'd written that on that side of the board or whatever, and so he looked back at the board and was like, that wasn't there before. Only it's been there forever. Yeah, so I guess we would have to. I guess we would have to assume that. Or the fact that there's this, if there is in fact a monster, I guess that's like, shadowing you your whole life. I guess it would learn your handwriting pretty well, or it could learn your handwriting if it were so inclined. So we could say that they're masters of mimicry, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, it stands to reason that he wrote it.
And this episode reveals what happens to everyone's coffee.
Right.
Capaldi just walks away with it. Peter Capaldi just comes up and takes your cup of coffee and walks away with it.
Yep. I loved that scene. I thought that was great.
Yes.
That was one of the points where I was like, yes, this is now I am really seeing what Capaldi's all about. He's talking like, because all the doctors do that sort of thing where they'll just talk to a person or ask a person questions, and that person will like instantly trust them and reveal everything and and stuff like that. But only the 12th Doctor goes so far as to then, after extracting information from that person, stealing their coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that. I thought that was great. I do have to say, as much as I loved this episode, I thought there were some, in one thing in particular, I thought was kind of weird with how, I don't know, I guess it was how they like edited the episode, or just how the camera work happened or something.
What would that be?
It's where Clara is with Rupert Pink in his bedroom, and Clara, in order to sort of comfort him, she figures she'll go under the bed, and so we get a shot of her going under his bed, and it's the camera, I guess it's the camera under the bed looking out at Rupert, and so she's sort of like crawling past, so she's like in the foreground, and then it sort of like pops almost, where like she disappears, and this is where like this was like edited together obviously, where she's like halfway across the camera, and then she disappears basically, and then it's still, but like basically the camera has not moved. The camera is still pointed at Rupert, and it's the same. It's basically the same shot it was before. Just Clara's somehow vanished. It's very weird.
I did not notice this.
Well, yeah, it's a minor thing, and it happens so fast you almost wouldn't notice it. But I feel like, I don't know. I feel like maybe there should have, because what it is obviously after Clara goes under, we get that shot of Rupert where he's kind of like confused and conflicted and doesn't know if he wants to go under, and I feel like that should have been, and I guess maybe they didn't want to show any other angles of the room, but I feel like there should have been a shot like in between, and I'm talking like I know anything about filmmaking, but I feel like there should have been a shot in between there where it shows her crawling under, and then like there's a shot of something else, or just Rupert from a different angle, and then it's back to that shot of looking at Rupert from underneath the bed, and then Clara doesn't have to be obviously, and then that would be where Clara is no longer in the shot, and that would be, I don't know, more natural or whatever. And I was thinking, but it could very well be that they wanted to keep that sort of, I don't know, claustrophobia kind of feel, like where you're sort of under the, I don't know, like and sort of keeping the camera below the bed's surface or whatever. Because if they showed a shot of the empty bed top or whatever, maybe that sort of changes the impact of when something suddenly gets on the bed or whatever. I don't know. I just don't know. But I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. And it was just, and it's a very minor thing, but it seemed like that was a mistake to me. I mean, like, and it's a little bit funny that that's my only complaint, pretty much. But like, it is something that I noticed, and I thought it was weird.
I think my only major complaint about this episode is I'm tired of like the Doctor making insulting comments about Clara. I'm sick of that. It's like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah. At this point, I think it's well established that he doesn't understand human customs or rituals or what people find attractive or what people do to try to be attractive or anything. I don't know, or what is attractive to people.
There's a great line in City of Death where the Fourth Doctor says, "You're a very beautiful woman, probably."
Right.
And I guess this is trying to pick up on that, but I don't know. I feel like it happened. The first time it happened in this episode, I was like, "Is this gonna happen once every episode?" And then it just happened again and again in this episode. It happened like there were 8 or 9 different times, and I was like, I just thought it was a bit much.
Yeah. I think we get it. And I mean, like, Moffat likes to emphasize that, the Doctor's alien by making him just so confused about certain aspects of humanity, I guess. Like, the Lodger was kind of a showcase of different things the Doctor just doesn't understand, like, just, like, awkward sort of habits and stuff. I don't know. Just to sort of hammer home that he's an alien. And I guess this is sort of the way they're doing that with the 12th Doctor, is to sort of make him clueless on stuff like this. But yeah, I feel like we get it. I think we can get a rest now.
Well, I feel like a big deal is made out of like, oh, no more flirting, no more flirting, no more flirting. So now all of a sudden, instead, he's negging. Like he's just like lobbing all these negative comments about, her makeup and her hair and her eyes, and it's like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
It's a little excessive, I think.
Yeah. So I think we've seen the psychic paper for the first time in Series 8. He sort of used it to convince that guy he was an inspector or whatever.
Yeah, I believe that was the first.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while, and it's been a while since, I can't remember, but I feel like it's been a while since he used the psychic paper to convince someone of something. It seems like recently.
Successfully.
That's true. Right. Yes. Because I feel like he's used it a bunch of times to receive messages. Like he has it set to some sort of temporal news feed in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and that's how he finds out about the dinosaurs on a spaceship. Which I wonder whatever happened to that. Maybe it stopped working when they took down Google Reader.
Probably.
But I don't know. But yeah. That's like a thing that you that's like a nice gimmick, but you kind of don't need. Like the psychic paper, by and large, seems superfluous because usually the Doctor can just talk his way into anything anyway. But I don't know. It was neat seeing it.
Yeah, it was it did feel like a throwback.
Yeah. So. Yeah. At this point, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, it's like it's almost as much as a callback as any like classic Who reference.
Right.
It's been so long.
That's true. Yeah. Almost 10 years since 2005. That's how time works. But yeah. So it's got enough staying power. It can have its own throwback.
How did you feel about Orson Pink?
I liked the idea, I guess. I thought it was a bit weird that. Well, maybe it's not so weird, but for one thing, I like that they're getting back to the concept of like the pioneer time travelers, because I thought that was a really cool. Like even when we were talking about Hyde, I think I expressed that was a really cool concept that I wanted to explore more, and so I like that they're exploring it more. Although I guess the extent of the exploration is basically like, yeah, there were these pioneer time travelers and crazy stuff happened to them. And here's one who got trapped at the end of the universe, and obviously, I guess that's kind of, I don't know what else I would want from that, but I do like the idea that like, yeah, there's, obviously early attempts to time travel went horribly wrong, and that's kind of neat, and I guess it's not as huge of a coincidence that a supposed descendant of Danny Pink and possibly Clara is a time traveler. Like that's, but I mean, like I guess he sort of, I guess it's sort of explained in that, you know, that Orson's like, well, it runs in the family, so I don't know. Maybe he thought he was getting into the family business, so maybe it's not that unusual. But I don't know. As I said, I do like the pioneer time traveler thing, and I think that's kind of a neat concept. So I guess overall, I liked Orson Pink just fine.
Wasn't the lady from Hyde supposed to be one of the very first time travelers though?
Yeah, she was.
And she was from much farther into the future.
Was she?
Yeah, she was a lot more greats.
Oh, that's right.
Down the chain.
How do we reconcile this?
I have no idea.
Maybe it's like competing time trial experiment. Oh no, you can't compete. Well, it's with time travel, I guess.
Compete with the future?
You can compete with the future.
Who comes up with it first? The present is going to win.
It's not. Maybe it's not about who comes up with it first. Maybe there's some artificial, goalpost that you can work towards across time. Yeah, how would you reconcile that? Because, well, maybe it's a thing where like they tried doing these time travel experiments, they went horribly wrong, and then they stopped for 1,000 years, and then they started picking them back up and thinking like, hey, whatever happened with this time travel stuff? We should try this up again.
Yeah, well, I believe she was a few hundred years in the future.
Oh, okay.
Whereas he seems to be only about 100 years in the future.
Right.
And I mean, what they're doing with Orson isn't like. I mean, they're sending him into the future, which, I mean, aren't we all?
Yeah.
They were just trying to send him to next week. They weren't doing anything all that impressive, in my opinion.
No, they really weren't. I mean, couldn't they at least send him to next weekend, so it'd be the weekend? That's what I've always wanted.
They were basically doing the easy kind of time travel, just make you move forward a little bit faster.
Right. They could cryogenically freeze you and achieve that too.
Yeah, basically that's something we've pretty much already figured out how to do that.
Right.
The implementation would be difficult, but it's something we basically know in principle how you do that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas just travel to the past is much harder, so maybe that's why it took a few hundred more years.
Yeah, there you go. Baby steps.
Yeah. I'm also curious to know why he had a Sanctuary Base 6 spacesuit.
Oh, right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe those come back in style.
Well, but that's before.
Oh,
I think.
Well, they come back in style for Sanctuary Base 6.
Yeah, they said, we've got all these orange spacesuits with SB6 patches on them. This might as well, did this mean anything back in the day? No, they just thought it was a aesthetically pleasing combination of symbols. They're like, well, how about we actually, retroactively make it mean something? I was like, well, sure, why not?
Well, wait, now hang on, because do we know that this was his own spacesuit? I mean, he was wearing it, sure, but are we, maybe the doctor was like, all right, I'm going to send you back to hundreds of years in the past, but because of the butterfly effect or whatever, anything you do might change the future, so you got to be in a complete spacesuit, so you can't even sneeze. That even your future sneezes are contained.
Well, he's wearing it in the send-off video. So
it's not something he was given by the doctor.
No. Unless he was given it by the doctor earlier somehow. He inherited it from, maybe the doctor gives it to Danny and it gets passed down. And he decides, for my trip to 1 week in the future, I'm going to wear an old spacesuit.
I think that's got to be it, yeah. This must be along the same lines as saying that, Rory's hospital badge expires in 1990.
Yeah.
This is just got to be this is just got to be the props department just fucking with people, right? I'm sure that's what it is.
It could be. Well, this case is probably just that they're lazy.
Yeah. Well, spacesuits are expensive.
Yeah. Well, they didn't even take the patch off though.
Right. They could have, covered up the patch with an armband or something. I don't know. there's a number of things they could have done that would have right. So it's so deliberate. I feel like I don't know, or just lazy, maybe deliberately lazy.
I think there was an attempt to make a low budget episode here.
Yeah.
So that's probably part of it. Like they didn't have the budget to take the patch off.
Right. Obviously, sewing needles or whatever the opposite of sewing needles are. The thing.
It's a fun little conundrum. What's the opposite of a sewing needle?
They couldn't afford to, take a pair of scissors or whatever and cut it off. So yeah, a real shoestring budget here. I think it's weird, and I think it's weird all the time. Because there's a point where Orson Pink goes out and pulls the Doctor in, because he's, whatever the airlock, the air shell failed or whatever, and the air's all being sucked out. So he goes and gets the Doctor, and the Doctor is knocked unconscious, and Orson Pink says he's out cold, he'll be fine. And that is obviously something that happens in fiction all the time, where a character gets knocked unconscious and then they wake up and they're fine. But I'd like to point out that, and I mean, I don't look to Doctor Who for realism, but like being knocked unconscious is a serious medical condition, and you really need to, you've undoubtedly suffered brain trauma. And I feel like maybe Orson just doesn't know a lot about medicine, and that could very well be. But I mean, like, I feel like if you're doing some crazy time travel stuff, you need to have a basic sense of like anatomy and biology and stuff, or I would hope. I don't know. Like, what if he got stranded at the end of time? How's he gonna repair, a broken femur or whatever? I don't know. But I just think it's weird that, like, that's fine.
Well,
and once again, I know it's fiction, and this is a staple of fiction, is that characters just get knocked out, and that's just what happens.
And are fine.
Right. They wake up and they are fine. So, I mean, and I'm not bothered by it, but I don't know, I just think, I always find it funny.
Well, he's a Time Lord, so...
He is, and maybe he already explained that to Orson. He's like, if I get knocked out, listen, I know that you've been trained to check for concussion, and I know that you think it's real bad if someone gets knocked out, but I'm actually completely fine if I get knocked out. That's totally okay.
They must have had that conversation.
I think so. But yeah.
It's part of like the whole orientation process for the Doctor interacting. He actually has that conversation with almost everybody.
Right.
It just doesn't get shown because, pacing.
Right. Obscure medical scenarios, those don't actually end up being plot relevant very often. And, there's the whole foreshadowing thing. And if they included that bit of dialogue, then, the audience would be expecting the Doctor to get knocked out. So they can't have that.
Right. I liked seeing John Hurt again.
Yeah, even if it was just a blip, I liked reinforcing the idea that he was the Doctor.
Four out of the past 7 Doctor Who stories have been multi-Doctor stories.
Huh.
Because you got Name of the Doctor.
Uh-huh.
Which is a multi-Doctor story, I would say.
Yeah, it counts.
You got Day of the Doctor.
Yeah.
Then you got Time, which isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Deep Breath is.
That's right. You got to count that phone call.
And then you got Into the Dalek, Robot of Sherwood, which aren't. And then this, which has the First Doctor.
Yeah, there you go.
Multi-Doctor stories.
Yeah, they're
all over the place.
Well, and this could be maybe this is a very real problem, as there become more and more incarnations, we could just see multi-Doctor stories all over the place, I mean, obviously, like, the actors aren't going to live forever, but I mean, Matt Smith's still pretty young. He could always come back.
He could. So could David Tennant or Paul McGann or Christopher Eccleston. They could always get him to change his mind.
Yeah.
By convincing Joe Ahern to direct. Christopher Eccleston has said he won't come back unless Joe Ahern directs it.
Okay.
He directed a bunch of Series 1 episodes, I guess. Christopher Eccleston really likes him.
I guess so. Well, and is that not a reasonable demand? Because I don't know anything about TV production.
Well, to have the actor say, "I will be in this if you bring in this director." I don't know. I think it sounds kind of unreasonable to me.
Okay, like I was like, I don't know in my head if that's like asking for $1 bajillion. Like, sure, I'll be in your movie if you can genetically engineer a pig to fly. But yeah, so I don't know how reasonable that is to request that. And I guess on the surface, even as I'm thinking about it, it doesn't sound that reasonable.
I think what it was is he promised to be in the 100th anniversary special if he was still alive. If Joe Ahern would direct it. So.
What if Joe Ahern's dead?
Well, then tough shit.
Does Christopher Eccleston just like stop acting? Like, are they symbiotes? Perhaps.
I don't know. Could be.
I want to believe. Is it even? How old would Christopher Eccleston be for the 100th?
I don't know. Old. Very old.
Well, right, because I'm thinking Matt Smith is what, 27 something like that, 28.
Well, I think he's 30 something now.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so he's looking to be, well, he'll be like 80 for the ish, or almost 80 for the 100th.
Probably.
So, assuming, time is linear or whatever.
Christopher Eccleston will be 99.
Well, human lifespan. People live that long.
Some of them do.
So, I guess it's conceivable. How old is Joe Ahern?
Joe Ahern. His Wikipedia page does not say.
Oh.
What his IMDb page says. What?
What?
It says he was born November 23rd, 1963.
What?
That seems a little unlikely.
Seems kind of really unlikely, actually.
Maybe.
Is Joe Ahern the incarnation of the show itself?
He could be.
He directed those episodes, but maybe there was no director. Maybe it was just Doctor Who directing.
Maybe.
That's almost gotta be wrong. That's like,
yeah, that can't be right. That's what IMDb says, though.
How likely is it that IMDb is wrong?
Well, it's pretty likely.
Wikipedia is the encyclopedia that anybody can edit. But how many people can edit the Internet Movie Database?
Well, I think that's user editable.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you have to be like a pro member?
I honestly don't know.
I know pro members get a bunch of features or whatever.
Ooh, sounds great.
I really want to know his age now. I don't know why he's hiding it.
I guess it's possible.
I guess it is. Either that or he's immortal and he's trying to disguise his immortality by making up birth dates.
Yeah.
So
November 23rd, 1963. Sure, why not? I guess stranger things have happened.
I guess so. I just don't know what to believe anymore.
Nor I.
But in any case, he'd be 100, and I guess that's not much better than 99. So, I guess it's possible they could both still be alive.
Sure. I wonder what happened to the house. That barn was allegedly associated.
Oh yeah,
with.
yeah. Because obviously they didn't look like they had walked that far to get inside. Because obviously all we see is their feet, but their feet look like they're wearing fancy-ish shoes, or at least not comfortable walking shoes. So they couldn't have walked too far.
Right, and the barn is in the middle of nowhere.
That's right.
We see it in Day of the Doctor. So
yeah. So yeah, I wonder if I wonder what happened to that house and what didn't happen to that barn. Because whatever happened to the house didn't happen to the barn. So couldn't have been a natural disaster, because that would have wiped out both of them theoretically. Unless the house is just way less structurally sound than that dinky old barn. But
can't have been that great of a house.
No, could not. Couldn't at all.
I assume that I assume now that when Moffat was writing Day of the Doctor, he probably already knew that he was going to revisit that barn.
Yeah, Well, because it's kind of a very weird. Because the Doctor obviously goes there with purpose, and I mean, it could have. And I guess Stephen Moffat literally was probably already prepping Series 8 scripts at that point. Well, maybe not.
Well, at least by the time Day of the Doctor was in production.
Yeah. So yeah, he must have. Yeah, so he could very well have had a very solid idea of what he was going to do with that barn. Well, and it makes sense because, to be honest, like, I had wondered about that barn too. Like, I was wondering what was so significant about this barn. Was it just a convenient place to park? I mean, it looked like the Doctor had gone there with intent, like he had intended to go to this place.
See, I hadn't wondered about the barn.
Oh, really?
I'd seen it brought up a few times, and I was like, it's just a barn. He just went. It's just a place where he went. He just had to go to a place, and here's a place. Just had to go to the middle of nowhere, and this is where it is. But I mean, turns out I was wrong to think that it was just a random barn.
Well, yeah, actually, it may have been that I had seen it brought up somewhere else, and unlike you, I was like, yeah, they're onto something here. This barn is significant. But yeah, no. I mean, like, what I kind of figured was it was just one of those things we were never going to have answered. I figured it would just be like a thing where, this barn is, the Doctor chose this barn, and it's mysterious for some reason, but we're never going to find out. And I mean, I figured it was just something from the Doctor's past. Like, if the barn was important, it was just going to be something from the Doctor's past, and that was all we needed. Like, we didn't need to know more than that. I didn't think. But I mean, like, I don't dislike this explanation. I think this is kind of a neat one, and I've expressed in the past that I don't want explanations unless they're good. Like, I don't want an explanation just so that I can have an explanation. I just want an explanation if it's an interesting one. And I think this is an interesting one, and I like it. So I'm glad that they went there and did that and explained that to me, because I liked it.
Are you looking forward to Time Heist?
I am, and you know what else? Yes, I am. Yes, let's start with that. Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to Time Heist. I think it will be interesting. Something I noticed in the trailer, and I don't know if I was just mistaken, but I assume you watched the trailer.
Yes.
I assume that's why we're talking about it. There's a voiceover where I don't know if it was a voice we recognized. They say, picture the thing that you want the most, or something like that, and there's like a bunch of images that flash, and I could have sworn that one of the images was of Captain Jack, but I'm not sure. It may have just been a person who looked surprisingly like Captain Jack, but I wonder what that could mean, or if it's just a random throwback that means nothing.
Oh, weren't there like images of wanted posters or something?
There might have been,
because I see pictures on Tumblr.
Oh, yeah.
Of those wanted posters. I didn't really notice them as they flashed by in the trailer, but
yeah. So I wonder what's up with that. But yeah, it sounds interesting, and it sounds like the stakes are pretty high, because if they don't rob this bank, they're gonna die. Is what it sounds like.
That is what they say. Yeah, so there's all these wanted posters, and they have James Marsters' character from Torchwood is in it. Is one. I didn't see a picture of one of Captain Jack. One of them is like a Sensorite from The Sensorites, which is a first Doctor story. There's a Slovene. There's actually a picture of Absalom Doc Dalek Killer from the comics, from the DWM comics.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, there might have been a Jack there too, but Tumblr didn't pick up on it apparently, because in the tag on Tumblr there's all these other pictures, but not that one.
Interesting. Well, it could have been. I mean, I admit that I could easily have been mistaken. So I have no idea, but But that's what it looked like to me. And I don't know, I didn't bother to go through the process of rewinding and then trying to freeze it on the exact frame. That just seemed like a lot of work. Maybe in days gone by I would have taken the time to do that, but I didn't. So I really have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's nothing new. No, and I am excited. I don't know who is writing it though. I'm sure
Stephen Thompson.
Is that
and Stephen Moffat? It's co-written.
Oh, okay.
Stephen Thompson is the guy who wrote some not very good ones. Like he wrote the one with the pirates.
Oh, okay.
Curse of the Black Spot. He wrote Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. Yeah.
Okay.
He also wrote. He's also one of the writers on Sherlock.
Ah.
He's the one who's not Stephen Moffat or Mark Gatiss.
Oh, is that the one he is?
Yeah, that's the one he is. And so this is co-written between him and Stephen Moffat.
Okay.
So.
Well, you got to have a good script eventually, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's done fairly well on Sherlock.
Yeah.
If I see his name alone on a script, it doesn't excite me. But if it's co-written between him and Moffat, well, who knows?
Who knows? No. So, is it supposed like I don't know? I'm just thinking about this title though. Are we? I guess I'd rather it be a surprise maybe, but like, is it just a heist that involves time, or is it like a heist where like they're trying to steal time?
Or maybe it's just time for a heist. It's heist time.
I think it's been a while since we've had a heist. Let's have one of those. Has Doctor Who ever had a heist?
Never on TV.
Ah.
There's a pretty good Big Finish audio with the Eighth Doctor and Lucy called Grand Theft Cosmos.
Ah. Well, cool. So yeah, the show had to get around to that eventually.
Speaking of things that don't directly have to do with this week's episode of Doctor Who, which is a very broad category, I would say, but
right. This falls into the other things.
Yeah.
Category.
So a long time ago, we did an episode on Time in the Rani.
Yes,
and we didn't like it.
We didn't.
And we thought it would be fun to hear a defense of Time in the Rani.
Oh yeah.
And shortly after that, Luke of the Minute Doctor Who podcast, or Tumudwup, said that eventually he would get around to doing a defense.
Oh, okay.
And he just did this week.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, he did his podcast is a video podcast.
Oh, that's right.
It's best viewed on YouTube, in my opinion.
Ah.
So yeah, if you want to, he finally defends Time in the Rani.
Oh man, I'm excited.
I'm not sure I really buy it, but
okay.
maybe I'll have to rewatch with some of those points in mind and see if my perspective changes. But frankly, I'm not all that optimistic.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited to see that. Well, yeah, no, and I'm open to the possibility that there is a future in which I actually enjoy Time in the Rani. I think it's a really small chance, but I'm willing to give it that chance.
Well, maybe if not enjoy, maybe at least there's a potential there for respect.
Right. Respect, appreciate, that sort of thing. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
I could totally see that.